So, hey Kimberly, I'm going to start quick making a schnitzel for you. So one of the first things you need when you make a schnitzel is ultra fine breadcrumbs. So if you do your own breadcrumbs like I do, and these are a bit more of a coarse ground for like the really crunchy stuff, I also keep a separate container conveniently called ultra fine schnitzel crumbs. So I am running a little bit low. So what we're going to do here is take some of the more coarse. These are mostly from my own personal bread. So they're handmade breadcrumbs that dried out. I'm gonna throw them into the food processor, and we're going to turn that on and get those down to a super ultra fine ultra fine texture. That's the first thing you need, because you really want the breadcrumbs to just adhere and also be nice and flexible. If it's too coarse, like a panko crumb, it really is going to want to clump and fall off, especially once you start the dredging process here. So I'm going to get this going. Do that while we set up our dredge mix here. We're only doing a couple. So while that's still grinding, I decided to do several pretty small pieces of All right, I think that's looking pretty good. We'll take a look at that again here in a few minutes. But so while we got that going, we're just going to basically schnitzel is your basic dredge: flour, egg, crumbs, and it literally is that simple. While we're doing that, I do have the pan heating up here. The most important thing with the pan, I like to use cast iron, but it's certainly not necessary. You can use pretty much any pan, stainless steel, whatever you'd like to use. But I do like cast iron just because it holds its heat so well. So we're gonna do, we'll do two of these guys here. So as you can see, I chose very small pork tenderloins. The most important part is to make sure that they're thick enough, probably at least 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick, so that you can dredge them out nicely. I always cut the fat pieces off, put those aside and get rid of those. That way you're dealing with just pure meat. A little bit of, there we go. Just the pure meat. So go ahead and trim those off just like that. Get those fatty pieces off. Basically when you're doing schnitzel, one of the greatest things about it is that it's gonna be such a thin piece of meat by the time you cook it, that as soon as it's golden brown, it's done. That's why it's one of the simpler German dishes to do. Okay, so I have two very small, probably just 3" by 2" pieces here. Your first step, if you can see this, can you zoom in a little? Your first step is to go down the center and butterfly these out. So even though these are quite small, you're going to be quite amazed at how large they get once we've actually pounded these out. So butterfly both these, which means to cut down the center almost to the base. And I'm sure, Kimberly, you've done this before. So, okay, there. We have two of those. We can go ahead and throw our fatty pieces into the compost. Now we need a piece of press and seal. So just use a piece of plastic. Let me check the temperature on. Ooh, it's too hot already. I'm gonna turn that down. Okay, so I'm just preheating the cast iron, just keeping the stove going a little bit. So this is my dirty knife. I'll get rid of that one. This is supposed to be over here, actually. Okay, so you want to take your piece of plastic. Now we are just doing a basic pounding these out. The thickness that you want these guys, put the plastic over. Do not use the spiky end. You're not tenderizing the meat. Use the flat end, because you really just want to spread it out. So each of these currently are probably at the thickest point here, a little less than 1/4 of an inch, but really you want them to be about as thin as possible without changing the protein structure of the meat. You don't want it to start looking like it's a protein meal. But when you're done pounding these out, it should be about 2 to 3 millimeters thick total. Start it towards the center and work your way towards the outside. There, that looks okay. That's the first one. You can see here that the thickness is pretty darn thin, and that's honestly what helps it cook so quickly. And it's also been tenderized a bit with the pounding that we just did. This piece here is just a tiny bit thicker, but we're going to put our plastic back over. Work that out here. Now, the bigger the pork chop, the bigger these fillets are going to be. You know, like a regular grocery size store thick cut. By the time you do it, it's going to be a good 8 to 10 inches. And once you pound it out all the way, center to the outside. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. Maybe a little more on this side here. Okay. Yeah, this is not the time to take out like all your frustrations on the world. You just want to kind of move it slowly, make sure that the meat gets to a nice even thickness all the way through. So if you're mad at your boss, don't just start hammering. All right. So here we have our two fillets. Now we need to heat up our oil. So I'm gonna take off the first salt and pepper, actually. Okay, I'm gonna take off the gloves. Just get myself one of these tongs. I'm a big believer in salting the meat for the most part, not necessarily the dredge, but you want to pretty liberally salt both sides, salt and pepper both sides of the meat. Once again, you know, whenever you're dredging meat and you do salt and pepper, it tends to water it down. I mean, the salt escapes through the breading, which is one of the reasons why it's so difficult when you're doing the salt in the breading to accurately pick exactly how much salt flavor you're going to bring into the meat. So you just like a nice coating of salt on here. I just forgot to do the pepper before I flip these. Some fresh ground pepper. Don't go nuts with this unless you have an audience that likes spicy type foods. A lot of times I do use my Tog spice, which is the heavy, stronger, spicy spice on these because I just personally like the spice. But traditionally it is just plain old salt and pepper. Do a little pepper on these sides. Okay, good. Now we are ready for the dredge. The dredge is quite simple. Actually, before we do the dredge here, I'm going to get the oil in the pan. So use my trusty thermometer here. This is up to 378 degrees. So, and the pan should be pretty evenly heated at this point. Now, I don't know, can you bring the camera a little closer? Uh-huh. The thing about, or zoom in on this, the thing about when doing a schnitzel is you're not deep frying. You really just want to they call it swimming. And it's done with either clarified butter. So you can see here I have about an 1/8 inch of oil in the pan. That's gonna get pretty hot fairly quickly. I'll just take a quick read with my thermometer here. You don't have to follow me. Take a quick read with my thermometer here. That's gonna get pretty hot pretty quickly, just because the pan's already preheated. But it's called swimming because it's not deep frying. And you'll see once we start frying here how everything pulls together. So I'm gonna put one more glove back on. I'm gonna finish the dredge. Current temp, let's turn this back up to 6. This will take a few minutes to heat up here. I like to use my candy thermometer on the side here. So we're gonna wait to dredge this because the best schnitzel literally is dredged right before it's served. Oops. Okay, we're up to 200 degrees. This really won't take that long. So the temperature that you want is you want it nice and hot so that it basically sears it and you get those crispy edges from it as well. While we're doing that, I'll take a look at my ultra fines here. You know, I might let this run just for a couple more seconds here, so bear with me, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, those are really good breadcrumbs. Okay, schnitzel worthy. I don't know if you can see, but they're quite fine. And so we'll lay some of these in here. And the rest we'll store for next time in the schnitzel container. This can be plenty for our 2 pieces of schnitzel that we're cooking today. So I can put these breadcrumbs away, ultra fines, cinnamon bread, regular crumbs, pancos, very good stuff. Okay, so from here, turn this up just a bit. You really do want this oil to be just perfect. So bear with me. I've never done a video before, so I guess my timing might be a little off. I apologize for that. Well, the silicone handle cover seemed like a good idea, but I can't set my thermometer in there. Handle's getting hot, that's a good sign. Yeah, again, don't overdo the oil. Clarified butter, lard, vegetable oil are really the most normal schnitzel fats to use for frying these. It's really up to you. Obviously, you do carry over some flavor, especially from the clarified butter and the lard into the finished product. The traditional schnitzel itself is from Austria, and you can actually only call it a Wiener Schnitzel if it's actually made out of veal. So even though we're doing these in the style of a Wiener Schnitzel, this is pork. Traditional schnitzels use pork, veal, chicken as well. But if you're over in Germany or Austria, you can really only call it a Wiener Schnitzel on a menu if it's actually veal. Otherwise it's like in the style of a Wiener Schnitzel, but it'll be pork or something like that. Personally, I absolutely adore veal Schnitzel, the real Wiener Schnitzel. Of course, with Jaeger Schnitzel and Paprika Schnitzel, they make different gravies and things like that. Mushroom gravies, which would be the traditional Jaeger Schnitzel, and then which on the side, so you'd make that on the side to pour over the top. Typically served with some sort of cucumber salad. Typically served with some kind of cucumber salad and a German. Okay, we're about at 350 degrees here. Starting to look pretty good. Let's give this a little stir, make sure we're even all around. About 300, we'll give it another second. Yeah, we really do. Okay, another thing I can do here. So this one, the traditional Wiener Schnitzel, which is normally the veal, as I just mentioned, is normally served with the potatoes, which I also have here served as well, and then some fresh parsley. And the parsley itself, I think, is just a super awesome touch. You throw them into the oil after the schnitzel cooks. stems and all, and it gets nice and crispy. It's just a great addition to the top of the schnitzel. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's turn this down to a normal, hold the temp heat. Okay, so dredging. Don't over dredge. You want to just make sure you cover it all with flour. Okay. You don't want it super, super, super. Oh, this is actually looking a little hot here. Okay. All right. So from there, you put in the egg, just like you normally do. Just a nice even layer of egg. Get the excess off. Okay. Get the excess off, it's flour. Drop it in your breadcrumbs. Get that nice and coated. Again, don't overdo it. You just want this to be nice and light and like a fluffy breadcrumb layer. And from there, drop the first one right into the oil. Now, for this part, it is kind of a nice touch. So you can see here, if you're looking, this is called swimming. So the meat's no more than about halfway into the oil itself. And we got a nice fry going here. And then once again, the most wonderful thing about this cook is that as soon as it's brown, it is basically finished. My oil was a touch hot here, so we're gonna swim it back and forth. The shuffling the pan, not really necessary. Just keeps the oil nice and even and hot while you're going through that. We'll give that a few seconds on that side. Let's do that while we go ahead and bread our second schnitzel. Just do a quick dredge. This is quite literally all there is to this entire process. Okay, we got a nice coating there. Get our egg on. In my egg, I do usually add a little bit of cream. That's just my thing to the egg, just to help thin it out just a smidgen. Okay, this is about ready to flip here, I think. Nice and thin. Oh, that looks gorgeous. We'll do that a few more seconds on this side. Okay, actually, before we go too much farther, I'm going to get rid of this dirty cutting board. This here. So we are just about set to, again, you don't want this too thick, so don't go crazy with the breadcrumbs. All right, just need a little bit of cooling rack, and keep it right there. All right, so as you can see, golden brown both sides. That is cooked. That is literally all there is to it. Okay, so now we're going to do the second one. Temperature looks very nice. Maybe we'll up that just a little bit. Temperature looks very nice. The real deal is get the crispy edges on these. That's really where you want to make sure that your oil's hot enough to accommodate it. Okay, this is looking pretty good here. My oil just a smidge cool, but we're not doing too bad. Nice thing about doing this is it kind of seals the juices, everything in while you're got that. But you can get the idea why they call it swimming. It's really not deep frying. It is very much just keeping it on the edges. And and if you're using clarified butter, it's just phenomenal, right? So good. If you're using cast iron, remember that your pan's a little hot. The handle gets hot pretty quickly, so This certainly can use a little bit of extra on the other side. We'll let that go for a second here. Now I can also cut myself a couple slices of lemon. As you probably know, the lemon is definitely traditionally served with it. So we'll put these 2 slices of lemon down in the pan with it, along with, not sure if you're familiar, but I think you have roots up north. But the other thing that you traditionally serve with it is lingonberry. This is with the traditional schnitzel, the Wiener. So lingonberry is normally served with like Swedish meatballs or Swedish foods. So you can see the consistency of the berries in here. So we'll end up serving a little bit of the lingonberry along with the lemon. Oh yeah, that was great. Nice, crispy edges are looking excellent. Okay, so we just have one more step after this. Let this go for just a minute. I also have some potatoes to fry, but I'll shut off the video for that. Let's use the same oil here. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna take those out. Now, a nice touch here is, and you're gonna want to back up just a little bit, is to take some parsley, stems and all, and just watch this. Toss those in there. Now the parsley is gonna flash fry all the moisture out of the parsley, and you can keep those going pretty much until a little bit beyond where they stop bubbling and the moisture's actually boiled off of the parsley, and that makes just a phenomenal crunchy topping for the schnitzel. So we'll use this piece here for our plating. All right. A couple slices of lemon, lingonberry. The lingonberry, and once these guys are done here, let's take this fried parsley, take a little grease off. These are actually really crunchy, super delicious. It's a flat parsley. It's not an Italian parsley, but you can use whatever you want. So then we take these green pieces and we'll throw these over the top here. And we turn off the heat, get this off. So I think we're done frying. Okay, so we have one piece of schnitzel, lingonberry, and then of course the only other thing that I personally love, which is not necessarily always served with it, is some spicy brown mustard. So for this case, I'm not going to put it on there, but maybe I will just a little bit. There we go. Some spicy brown mustard. So that's it. I mean, it's really pretty simple. It's butterflying a pork chop, pounding it out thin, using some very, very, very fine breadcrumbs. Just do a standard dredge, swim it in about 1/8 inch of oil, the bottom of your pan at about 350 degrees, and you're gonna have a beautiful, crispy, crunchy schnitzel. Thank you.